Welcome back to Movie Summary. Today we are diving into a film called Secretary. The movie starts with Lee walking into an office, all chained up. She does her secretary tasks with the chains, prepare a coffee, grabs papers and goes into a room and closes the door. Then we jump back 6 months ago. We see Lee is leaving her institute. She then goes to her sister's wedding. She is not in the best mood. Peter comes to her, he feels that she is not happy to be home. So he brings her to the dance floor to dance. Her dad, who said he stopped drinking, has a beer and is happy to see her back. He then doesn't feel good, which irritates Lee. She goes to her room, angry. Under her bed, she finds her old sewing tools. She then puts one tool to her leg, but stops at the last minute. That same night, Lee is poking when she hears her parents arguing non-stop. The dad pushes the mum who falls unconscious. Lee sees this and keeps getting irritated. She grabs a kettle. Her mom wakes up in her room. She puts the hot kettle to her leg. The next day, Lee is in class typing. She is then in her mom's car. She then narrates to us that when the incident happened, her dad was about to leave. When her mom turned her back, she cuts a little too deep. Surprised as she was doing it since 7th grade, her mum then hides all sharp tools in the garbage. She then finds help wanted. She never had a job before, but decides to apply for secretary. She arrives at the office. She sees the office upside down, with the old secretary leaving. Mr. Gray looks at a picture, then welcomes her. He is a lawyer. She is very nervous. He asks her a bunch of questions such as if she lives alone etc. He asks her right away to make a cup of coffee with sugar. She hurries in the kitchen, realizing the water is empty. She tries to replace it. Mr. Gray sees later she is wet. He then tells her it's boring job. She says she likes it. He says there is something about her, tight walls. Phone rings. He tells her to say he is not here. After the interview, she tells her mom she got the job. Her mom celebrates. That same night, Lee is in her hot tub, practicing how she will answer the phone for Mr. Gray. The next morning, Lee is at work and is taking care of her new duties. Days after days, she is slowly getting good at her job. One day, in the bathroom, a lady forgets her makeup, and Lee decides to try makeup for the first time. She brings him some cookies that he throws in the garbage, then asks her to look for some notes in the bin outside. She brings it to him, but he says he doesn't need it anymore, then keeps giving her so many tasks to do non-stop. She then sees the cookies he threw in the garbage. She is shocked. He then sees her legs. That's had some stitches. A lady then comes in to see Mr. Gray, then screams her name, while Lee screams at the person trying to sell her stuff on the phone. She then goes to tell Mr. Gray that Trisha is here, but he is hiding and whispers to her, "Tell her I'm not here." She tells her he is gone. Phone rings again. It's Lee's dad. Trisha sees Mr. Gray's coat, drop it, step on it and leaves. Meanwhile Lee's dad is already gone from the phone. She slams the phone and is emotional, grabs a box of her tools, and like always in that state, she is getting ready to hurt herself. Mr. Gray sees her, so she stops. That same night, Lee meets Peter for some food. They start drinking more. They share personal information. At this moment Mr. Gray walks in too. He sees them, he spies on them. They then kiss. Mr. Gray then goes back to his car. The next morning, he is pissed after seeing she made mistakes in letter she wrote. He shows it to her. It has been going on for few weeks. This is her final notice. Later he finds more errors, shows it to her. She cries and grab her toolbox, and do what she does when she is in that state. She then brings her final paper. When he sees her legs again, he tells her, "The way you dress is disgusting." He tells her to stop playing with her hair. Later she hears him screaming in his office. That night, Lee goes to meet Peter's parents. They already talk about wedding, which makes her uncomfortable. Days later, Mr. Gray calls Lee to his office. He says the phone is ringing when it's not. He takes this opportunity to teach her how to speak and answer phones. He then invites her to sit next to him on the couch. He asks about her date. She tells him about Peter. When asking if they had sex, she is shy. He then tells her she should feel free to talk about her problems with him. He finally asks about her toolbox. Seeing her being uncomfortable, he brings her hot chocolate. He asks her, "Why do you cut yourself? Is the pain inside needs to come out?" She sees that he understands her. He then tells her, "You will never cut yourself again. It's an order." He adds, "Leave your work early, take a nice walk home." She looks at him and obeys, saying, "Yes, sir." He then takes a picture of her. When she comes out, she tells her mom she will walk home from now on. During that first walk by herself, she felt great. He gave her permission and felt getting closer to Mr. Gray. The next day, she didn't bring the box but made a typing mistake. Mr. Gray is mad, so mad. He screams at her. He is getting tired of her. He orders her to come to his office, closes the door and orders her to bend over and read the letter. She is confused but does what he say. He smacks her. She is shocked. He tells her to continue reading. He keeps slapping while she is reading. He gets closer to her, touches her hand, then goes back to sit at his desk. He tells her go back typing it again. She then goes to the bathroom to see the bruises. She then brings the next letter for proofreading. He tells her, finally a perfect letter. She is happy. That same night, Lee tells her mum that the lock can be removed from the compartment where she hides the sharp items. Her mum hugs her. The next day, on her way to work, she drops her toolbox in the river. We then see she is getting smacked in the office, and we go to the scene from the beginning of the movie. She crawls to bring him letters to the office. They talk on the phone after work. Days after days she gets smacked and is now like a horse, carrot in her mouth. Now she dreams of maybe making love to him. She thinks about him, and pleasure herself. She then remembers Peter but drop his photo, as she imagines herself with Mr. Gray. Now she is ready to go to the next stage with him. He has been slapping her all those days, but today will mark a new direction in her life, and her wildest fantasies coming to life, as Mr. Gray gets ready to take the next step, making love. Check out the insane part 2 of this story, attached here. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and check our other movies summaries.